Let's continue with the underseat electrics tray. Welcome to Urban Monk TV. Well, it's a rare rainy day here in Southern California. Perfect day to work on the bike. Being from Minnesota, I love these kinds of days, and I almost want to just go for a walk out in that rain because we don't see it often down here. But I'm going to have to take a hiatus for a couple of weeks here from working on the Cafe Racer, so I want to show you guys some progress here before I have to do that. Hey, here's the good news. Long intro here today. Got a good friend from Minnesota, a dear friend from going way back to high school. We learned to play drums together. We ran in the same circle together and had a lot of fun over the years. He's coming down next weekend renting a motorcycle, and we're going to ride the twisties and enjoy some Palm Springs. So I will not get any work done on the Cafe Racer next weekend. And then the following week, we get into the Thanksgiving break for my kids. We're leaving town, going on a family vacation, and that'll cross over, well, yet another weekend. So sorry guys, but we're going to be offline a little bit on the Cafe Racer here. Gotta live my life and enjoy my friends. But as always, I'm committed to moving forward with this thing, and it'll be only a break and not a stoppage. One thing I did do since the last episode is I did go ahead and weld a cold steel or mild steel 8mm nut to the back of that little adapter that raises the back of my tank up. So now I don't have to go through some contortions to put a nut and a washer on the back side. The nut is actually welded to that piece of steel that I created here on the back. So I'm just putting a bolt in, and if I do need to pull that off roadside, I'm not going to be fiddling around with a loose nut in the back. So another thing I bought here is for rust removal. I've bought a sandblasting gun. This is a very cheap thing. I got it at Harbor Freight, and I don't expect well, perfection from this, but gosh, with a 20% off, I think I paid around $16-17 for this. So they don't come with the coupling fitting here, so I'm going to put that on. A lot of guys will drill, I believe 3/16 is the recommended. They'll drill out the hopper because this is where it all feeds in to kind of a venturi here. It blasts out. I don't have the tip on here. I'm going to try it stock. If it doesn't work, I'll take this apart and drill that out. But guys online are saying a 3/16 drill is the modification to make there, that it works well. Otherwise they say it clogs. They also say use a dryer on the line, which I do have one, so I'll probably install that. But for putting these things on, I usually put just a little bit of Teflon tape on these things before I put the threads on. So we're going to try to remove rust from inside the frame here with this, and then the foot pegs, they are real rusty, and they're just an awkward piece to try to sand. You know, that's what I'm going to try with it. And it's the kind of thing where you just blast the sand outside and you don't recover the sand. Here's a quick little tip for putting on Teflon tape. You don't want to wind it, you know, there's one better direction. You want to wind it so that when you tear it off, the tear is, you know, you're kind of swiping as you tighten in. If you do it the other direction, then as you tighten in, you're kind of unpeeling. So I always go this direction, if that helps. So then as I'm threading that in, you know, again, if I had done it the other way, then I'd be peeling it back as it hits these threads up here. Just a little tip. One thing the guys online definitely recommend with that blaster is some sort of dryer in the line to keep moisture out. And on a day like today, that's probably a good idea. Well, you saw a little bit of that blaster working. It does work. It's not ideal, but for a guy at home, I think it's fine. It makes a tremendous mess. I'm sure my hair, well, I got a hat on, but the thing that shut me down here is it's just raining a little bit too hard, and I've got all this exposed steel here that I'm going to get more rust. The point here is rust removal, so being out in the rain with exposed metal is not exactly the way to go about it. So I wanted to try it. It's going to work, and now I got to dry it up and give up for today on that piece. So sometimes you just got to be patient, you know, accept that today isn't the day, and your day will come. And don't get, boy, there sure is a life lesson in that, isn't there? Don't get all bent out of shape because the weather isn't cooperating with your silly little plans. But, gosh, for 17 bucks, I mean, what would it cost me to take this to a sandblaster and have them do it for me? What would it cost me in gas alone just to drive it over there in my SUV? And I'm having fun. Give you another quick look at that result. It gets into places that I'm going to have a very hard time getting with a wheel of some kind. I mean, you know, how am I going to get down in the little crevices? It ain't happening. So, yes, I have a Dremel, and we may get a little Dremel out here, but the sandblasting is just a lot shorter path, and it wasn't that expensive. Of course, I know I'm always being budget-minded here. I buy a lot of inexpensive, cheap tools to get things done, and I like showing that that can be done. Could I do it without that blasting tool? Yes. This big sanding wheel, well, frankly, a sanding block and a tiny Dremel would be all you'd need, and a lot of time. But, you know, I'm not breaking the bank. While I'm trying to be quiet in here, I'm thinking ahead. Here's a quiet tool, my heat gun, and that's not going to wake anybody up. I've got this tank that I am going to paint because we've got rust here, I've got paint worn away there, I've got a small dent up in the front on two sides that I want to fill in with some Bondo, but it's got this pinstripe on it, and I don't want to paint over that, and it's very brittle now after 39, almost 40 years. I want to get that and the adhesive off, so I'm going to just warm it up with heat. Going on the low setting here, I've loosened up the gas cap and am making a very concerted effort not to be blowing this hot air toward where vapors may be coming out. The tank is empty. I'm not going to raise the surface temperature too high, but you know, to warm it up, you got to certainly bring some temp up. You know, what else can I say about it? I guess another alternative, if a guy was really concerned about starting a fire with the vapors that are in this tank, one of the things that automotive guys will do My dad actually reminded me of this. I think I had known it at some point and forgotten it along the way, but they'll fill it up with water and displace all of that vapor. And then of course that's a tremendous heat sink, water, but I don't think it's necessary in this case. This tank is completely evaporated, but there are still some fumes. I'm just letting that vent out over here and working here slowly, low setting, not directly hitting it with the heat, that kind of a thing. So. So this is kind of slow and meticulous, but it'll get me there. And then every once in a while I'm just going to peel the piece away. Oh, there I pulled the paint. Okay, so there it is. Still got some adhesive. There's a bit of an edge to it. I'm going to get an adhesive remover and run that over there. And then of course I got to do the other side now. But this didn't take too long. The one side maybe took me 10-12 minutes. So, there you go. We got the stripe off. Perfect? No. That's my loose cap. I was wondering what that noise was. What am I going to do here? I'm going to get some adhesive remover, maybe like a Goo Gone or maybe something from 3M. 3M always does such a good job. In fact, this is probably 3M pinstriping that's 40 years old on here that I had such a difficult time getting off. So, being from Minnesota, well, you don't have to be from Minnesota to be a fan of 3M products, let's put it that way. And yes, my uncle worked for them for decades. Good company. Well, I've had to concede that I've folded this piece with a little bit too much width in some areas, but for now I'm going to still try to make this work. Maybe I'll get to a point where I have to just hang it up and start over, but I think I can make it. I've just got a distance here that's a little too wide, this one here that I can make up for in other ways, and this here also. So right now it feels like quite a bit of a force. If we are gonna weld along in here, we got to get some paint off. So I've switched to a 60 grit flap disc. Let's see how this works. Very well. That's a great tool. Let me show you the result there. That was very quick work and it's extremely smooth. I also have a 120. This frame will be getting more treatment from the flap disc for sure. So I just want to show you what the flap disc will do. There is an example of after the grinding disc, and you end up with these kind of flattened surfaces. This is very rough. But as you go around to this side where I've hit it with the flap wheel, you can see how smooth that is. And it is. like totally rounded. So that's going to look much better under paint. So I am convinced that the final step after grinding and cutting and doing all that, at least as far as this tool is concerned, is this flap wheel. Let me show you that thing. Bunch of little bits of sandpaper. Love it. Okay, I've been fiddling with this thing a long time, and I've finally decided to throw in the towel. Here's the deal. I cut it too wide, and so just going on measurements alone, because of the odd shape in here, and it is odd, it's just not, this is not straight, this is not straight. You got rounded corners here, and of course this radius. I'm going to start over. I've only got about $8 into this piece of metal, and maybe I can salvage some of it for use up here. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm going to take a new approach. I've got a piece of cardboard that runs the length, thanks to a recent purchase, that runs this entire length. So I'm going to cut out a cardboard template and just trim that to fit exactly. And once that cardboard fits, then I will transfer that to the piece of metal plus a little bit for a fold, and this time I'm not going to be adding any extra to be taken up in that fold, because, you know, could I continue to get this to work? Sure, but it's starting to get really misshapen. It's anything but flat, and you know, it's $8. Let's just throw in the towel and start over with a different approach. So, cardboard template. Here we go. Okay. So now I've got a piece that most definitely fits in here. And while I was at it, I went ahead and did one for up here too. Sorry, I got the compressor letting the air out of it. I guess while we're on it, I might as well mention, if you have an air compressor at home, when you're not using it, don't leave it completely, you know, compressed. There's a release valve on the bottom of the tank or somewhere. Open that thing up and let all the pressure out of it. Or there's moisture buildup in there, and that moisture will sit at the bottom of that tank and slowly eat away at the steel and eventually ruin your tank and your compressor. So when I'm done using my compressor, I always open that valve and let it drain out completely. And I actually see water come spitting out of that when I'm done, especially on a humid day like this. And of course, whatever climate you live in may affect that too. Okay, so that's going to have to be a wrap. I got a new piece of sheet metal. What did we learn today? There's a right way and a wrong way to go about doing these trays. Template is the right way, I think. I just made these assumptions. You know, your eyes tell you, well, here, let's just put it this way. This thing's a journey, and there's no way you're going to do something as complex as stripping a bike down to nothing and putting it back together without making a mistake here and there. It's no big deal. So you made a mistake, redo it. I'm not going to sweat it. This bike is still going to come out looking awesome when I'm done. Very confident in that. And it'll run well, it'll be a ton of fun, and something I'll be proud of and happy with. So what else did we learn? Love the flap wheel. Like, not my favorite tool ever, but way up there now. Beloved. And what else? Oh, we got that welded and fixed. So we made improvement. Oh, and we also sandblasted a little bit. So that's kind of fun. Never done any sandblasting before. So these are not only a journey of, you know, building a bike, but you learn new skills with every little challenge that you take on, every project you take on.
It makes you try something new and grow a little bit as a mechanic or as a craftsman, and that's the fun of life, right? I gotta get that flap wheel on here. It's just still a little rough. Again, next weekend I got a friend coming to ride, and then can't wait to see you, Jeremy, if you're watching. And following weekend, family vacation, so it'll be a while. I got a little bit I can post in that time, so you guys aren't completely bored, and I won't be entirely offline as far as my YouTube presence goes. But the Cafe Racer will be on hold for a couple of weeks, so sorry about that in advance. Thanks for watching. Take care.